I load the wrong save. Let me see if I have a different save. Okay, here we go. I'm still coughing. But anyway, so we are like partway into the second half of this trial, so it's kind of late now. But I'm presuming what's going to happen is it's going to turn out to be Miss Green, and we're going to show it's Miss Green by at some point or other showing this, which is going to show that Miss Green was once in Shakespeare's lodgings. That's how that shred of the envelope got in there. And then the truth about how the person in this picture died was that Shakespeare would blow into the gas pipe and extinguish the flames, extinguish the pilot lights, which would cause the gas to not combust upon exiting, so it would fill the room and would suffocate other lodgers in the house. So he did that, and that suffocated this person, and so he is responsible. Shakespeare is a murderer, essentially. He is directly responsible for this person's death. Miss Green found that out. Maybe. We don't know yet, but maybe she found that out somehow. And then she put poison on Shakespeare's light. And she stuck out of the hospital, went to Shakespeare's lodgings, stuck poison on the gas lamp in order to kill Shakespeare. She's the person who did it, and that's why. We'll see if that's right or not. I'm not sure. That's just my guess. Now, that's a little bit bothersome because this is supposed to be related to the government secrets somehow, at least according to Susato. I don't see how this is related to government secrets at all up to this point. So, and that doesn't really fit into my guess, does it? So there's something not quite right about my guess, for certain. Don't know what that is. Okay. Let's just press all of them, because I don't know what else to do. I can't press them. Oh. Can't press the ones that are dark green. We already pressed this guy and he says that his wife put salt in his tea, actually. I already pressed her. Can't press him. Can't press her. Let's try pressing him again. I already tried pressing him too, but whatever. Let's press all of them.
Hold it!
I will read these out loud. They're probably the same as before. Have to get Natsume to testify, but, Okay, so this is getting new. Okay, cool. Well, I didn't read that, whatever. Mr. Naruhodo, if we can't substantiate our position, I'm afraid the jurors that changed their minds before may very well change them back. What can I do? Is there more proof I could give here? Can I show that Mr. Shakespeare really did blow down the gas pipe on the night in question? I would say I have supporting testimony. No, in truth, I don't have evidence to support my theory, however. There is witness testimony that substantiates it. What's that? Testimony? This is incredible. Whose testimony? Yes, it's all connected. Everything is linked. A person whose testimony revealed details about the gas at the Gyarados residence that night. Namely, this guy.
Take that!
Talking about the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume himself. The defendant? But he's the defendant, though. We don't trust him. At the very beginning of the proceedings here in court yesterday, Mr. Natsume said the following. In lodgings, there's a whole series of strange happenings in my lodgings. Even on that fateful night it happened, when I returned from Mr. Shakespeare's room. I lit my gas stove and climbed into bed, but before long, the stove went out, and somebody tried to kill me. On the night in question, the gas in the defendant's room went out. So I asked the court, was that a mere coincidence or not? Good golly. So the Shakespeare fellow blew air into the gas pipe to make the man's stove go out on purpose. Now hold your horses there. What do you do that for? Mr. Foreman. Who is it, man? We cannot allow judgment to be passed whilst this doubt remains. It's true that I don't have conclusive evidence yet, however. You must surely agree, there is more to this case than meets the eye. Ah. Fair enough, like I said at the outset. I'm a man of logic first and foremost. As for jurors leaning towards not guilty, my lord, we've overturned the decision. Therefore, the defense calls for the trial to continue. As the defense has rightfully indicated, the summation examination has concluded with a majority of jurors altering their decisions. 2 jury members now called guilty, 4 now called not guilty. The Queen Bee is one of the ones that called guilty, which is interesting. Therefore, the jury's opinion is conflicted. In accordance with the law of this land, I hereby order the continuation of this trial. Mr. William Shakespeare, my lord, how can thy humble Shakespeare serve thee? What say you in response to the various revelations made during the summation examination? So God mend me, I do solemnly swear. I recall aught of either, the lamp or the pipe. But your handprints made a tiny mess all over the wall there. How do you explain that, eh? I am done with this. The dignity of this great courtroom has been sullied enough already. Juror number 5. Who, me? As I went to some pains to point out already, a print from the self-professed detective's toy has no place in a British court of law. As such, whether or not this man did indeed stand before the gas lamp with his hands against the wall remains at this time unestablished conjecture. You would all do well to remember that.
Objection!
But the prosecution must concede that it would be extremely simple to verify. Just order the mouth of the gas pipe feeding the lamp in Mr. Shakespeare's room to be examined. If there are any traces of poison there. What appears to be extremely simple is my Nipponese friend's mind. You'll recall that in order to check for the presence of poison in the tea, some remnants of the tea were required. Yes. Therefore, it shouldn't be beyond your wit to imagine that even if poison were to have been spread on the pipe, it would have completely evaporated by now, making my analysis impossible. Not all, it could have been oily, Not all the poison. Well, if it was in the tea at some point, then it could be. They would have to be water based. But we don't even have it. We don't think it was ever in the tea. But then again, the police thought it could have been in the tea. So yeah, in that case, it would be water soluble. It could still be heavy enough it doesn't evaporate. I didn't think of that. In any case, Counsel, I failed to see what could possibly have motivated the man to do as you described. I don't know what's up with my head. For some reason, I somehow had this connection between stuff being water soluble and stuff evaporating. I don't know where that came from. Gasoline evaporates rather easily. It's definitely not water soluble. I don't know what air soluble. How I relate dissolving in the atmosphere and dissolving in water to each other. That's completely weird. Phooey on me. In any case, Counsel, I failed to see what could possibly have motivated the man to do as you described. Why on earth would this fellow have wanted to blow air into the gas pipework where he lived? There's only one possibility that I can think of. And that is... And then you ask the question, why did he want to kill the other lodger? Well, we know he originally wanted the middle floor room as opposed to the lower floor room, which is the one he had. But why did he want it so badly enough that he would kill somebody on the upper floor? To use a leaking gas to commit murder. Order! Counsel! Precisely whose life do you propose this man was planning to end? The answer couldn't be simpler. Now that we've unraveled the mystery this far, Mr. Shakespeare wanted to end the life of this dude.
Take that!
If a gas lamp were to go out, it would be noticed immediately, of course. But a gas stove, on the other hand, could be silently extinguished by the killer without anyone noticing. I live around these parts myself, so I know what it's like. I can tell you, trying to sleep without the stove lit is pretty much suicide. You'd freeze to death in no time. Mr. Garrett, the landlord, has a large fireplace in his part of the residence on the top floor. In other words, it wasn't the landlord, but a fellow lodger whose life Mr. Shakespeare was trying to end. Outrageous. I'm talking, of course, about the defendant. Mr. Natsume isn't the villain in this case. He's the victim this man was trying to murder. Oh, gracious.
Objection!
But this is all based on these handprints, which, we can't actually use, and the accused is actually the aggrieved interesting. However, the fundamental facts of the case remain unchanged. Namely, that the accused is the aggressor here. What? How can you still claim that? Let us indulge your fancies for a moment and assume that there was indeed poison on the mouth of the gas pipe. The question then arises, is who put it there? Why do you have to even bother with this, Van Zykes? It's still based on those silly handprints. But who put it there? We're just gonna kind of let that kind of slide. Anyway, the only logical conclusion is that the person responsible was aware of this man's trickery with the gas supply and his intent to kill. Yes, that would indeed seem logical. If the assailant were unaware, how would he or she have known to lace the end of the gas pipe with poison? So now you must ask, how could anyone have known of Mr. Shakespeare's murderous designs? Ah, you mean to suggest... Naturally, the sole possible answer to that question could be no more obvious. Only the man whose life was being threatened could possibly have known. What? In other words, the person who put the poison on the gas pipe in what was a clear retaliatory attack can only have been the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Ah. Whatever Mr. William Shakespeare may or may not have contrived to do, he was nevertheless the victim of a potentially lethal poison attack. And the only person who could possibly have perpetrated that attack is the accused, Mr. Natsume. The defense counsel's theorizing has failed to avert suspicion from the accused. Far from it. In fact, now that a clear motive for the poisoning has been successfully established, that suspicion is greater than ever. Would you not agree, my Nipponese friend? Well, I would agree, but I can divert. Kind of. Except Ryusuke's an idiot. How do you manage to turn that around on me so rapidly? Because it was a thing to be turned around on you. Mr. Naruhodo, you must respond. Otherwise, the members of the jury may very well change their leanings against us again. And this may be your last chance to gain the advantage. What advantage? Well, it would seem that somebody put poison on the gas pipe in Shakespeare's room, so I must name that person now and absolve Mr. Natsume of guilt. You mean, name the true culprit? We just have to do it, okay. I know it might sound impossible, but if we fail to do that, I have no doubt that Mr. Natsume's fate will be sealed once and for all. I kind of get insulted by this, because if it asks you to do it, that means that the game expects you to know at this point. So if you do know at this point, you're not smart. It happens, one possible culprit does come to mind. The evidence, the poison, it's all pointed to a particular person now. The prosecution calls for the jury to consider their leanings again. I trust you'll make the correct choice this time, Mr. Foreman. Oh, what? Oh, no, don't you worry. There is one other person who I believe could have been involved in all of this. The true culprit of this crime. The true culprit? A term found only in second-rate novels featuring third-rate great detectives, my Nipponese friend. But why not? Well, this is very self-deprecating of you. Whoever wrote this game. This farce has gone on for so long already. I see no reason to cut it short before its disappointing climax. Thank you. Tell us, my learned Nipponese friend, what is your latest theory? Who is the so-called true culprit of this crime? So lame.
Take that!
The name of the person responsible for the poison that afflicted Mr. Shakespeare is, I believe, Miss Olive Green. Miss Olive Green? Miss Olive Green? I do feel as though I've heard that name in the recent past, Counsel, but I don't recall where. Miss Olive Green, the woman from 6 days ago? The victim in the recent case of stabbing on Briar Road? An accident for which Mr. Natsume was arrested, I hasten to add. Oh, of course, yes. Miss Green. She was left comatose for some 3 days, I believe, but here she regained consciousness 2 days ago. And I hardly need remind the court that Mr. Shakespeare's poisoning took place 3 days ago. Given that the woman was likely comatose in a hospital bed at the time, she appears to have a rather fine alibi. True, on the night that the incident occurred, Miss Green was in the hospital unconscious. So on the face of it, it would seem that she couldn't possibly be responsible, but still. My colleagues and I visited Miss Green in hospital yesterday, and we found her to be in possession of a little bottle of poison. Good gracious, she had poison. And there is another fact that links Miss Green to this case as well. The defense requests that she be brought to the witness stand in order to explain the details to the court. Tell me, Mr. Shakespeare. My lord, pray, what be thy bidding? Are you acquainted with Miss Green? Well, I would assume he is not. And no, I never heard of her. Correct, she didn't do anything to her specifically. Judging by the look of Mr. Shakespeare's face, I think perhaps he genuinely doesn't know her, at least not by name. As the voice of Her Majesty's prosecution here, I adhere to my word. We will see, my learned Nipponese friends, farce through to its conclusion. I appreciate that. The prosecution requests a short recess, my lord, in order to subpoena the witness and bring her here. Yes, Miss Olive Green. Indeed, my lord. 1 hour should be sufficient. Very well, I grant the request. Excellent, I hope. The defense has made a most extraordinary accusation, I must say. But at the present time, I feel the prosecution's argument remains largely uncontested. Accordingly, I'm afraid the defendant and his culpability remain the sole subject to this court's attention. Thank you, counsels. We can reconvene in 1 hour. Court is adjourned. Sure. Joyful jubilant jumping jacks. Mr. Natsume, I'm so pleased for you. Locum stay Mr. Naruhodo Esquire and non-locum judicial assistant Miss Mikotoba Esquires. Now finally, at long last, there can be proof. Proof that I'm innocent and proof that my tea is innocent. Oh, good morning, dear fellows. Ah, Herlock Shalves. May you drink my tepid tea and fall forever silent. I thought the tea was innocent. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you came. How wonderful. Please save your derision. I know that what you're all thinking. Good morning, he says, when it's very nearly time for a luncheon. Your scorn is written clearly across your faces. Nobody said or thought anything of the sort. The truth is, I was determined that today would be the day. As sleep seduced me last night, I thought. Tomorrow, for once, I shall not oversleep. I'll rise early and be present in court to support my companions. Such spirited determination has a beauty all of its own, does it not? Oh yes! And then I began to muse on the subject. Why do people oversleep, I queried. Why time after time do they make the same foolish blunder? Well, in my case, it's because they go to bed and sleep too late. It shifts it back. And the answer came to me at once. It's so delightfully simple. People oversleep because they sleep. Well, is that not an astute insight into the matter? Oh, yes. Upon which realization, I attempted an experiment. I didn't sleep a wink all night. And the results? By first light, I was exhausted and began to be assailed by fits of drowsiness. Shocking. And so the conclusion of last night's experiment is this. A good night's sleep is quite simply essential. Yes, I think most of us probably knew that already. What others presuppose I proved by experimentation. That, my dear fellows, is the scientific method. Would you starve to death to prove that you need food, Mr. Sholmes? He's like, no, I wouldn't go to death. If it felt like I was gonna die, then I'd eat. Ah, yes, and one more thing. Do you remember this? Yes, of course, it's the poison that Miss Green was about to drink at the hospital yesterday. Oh, you didn't manage to. It was a laborious task if the bottle was near empty, but such inconveniences do not hinder Sholmes. I managed to confirm that it contained strychnine. So I was right. Perhaps, though, of course, such circumstantial evidence doesn't prove Miss Green's guilt. I shall leave the bottle in your care now, but licking the inside of the neck is not recommended. Could I have a word? Gregson, how good of you to come. Forget it. Excuse me. Wait a minute, Inspector. I forgot my chips. I don't wish to make a nuisance of myself. From the look on your face, I'd say it's someone else who you think is making a nuisance of himself. My dear Inspector, please speak freely. Pretend that I'm not here. Believe me, if I could do that, life would be a whole lot simpler for me. Do you have the results, Inspector, of the investigation of Mr. Shakespeare's room? Not yet. Shouldn't be long now, though. But I'm here about something else. That dead convict, actually. Oh, you mean the man from this newspaper article we discovered yesterday in Mr. Shakespeare's room. A man by the name of, yes, Selden. I went through the archives at the yard and dug out the fellow's file. There's something in there that, well, caught my eye. Something caught your eye? What, Inspector, what? I've copied out the relevant parts for you, so you can read it for yourselves. Thank you. The capital offender's file has been introduced to our record. These documents include the details that were in the newspaper cutting we found in Mr. Shakespeare's room. I'll rearrange everything in the court record so we don't have duplicate information. Why are you giving us a copy of this important file, though? Well, you're the ones who turned up the clue in the first place, aren't you? I'm just making sure things get handled in the proper fashion. Now, Scotland Yard's workings are so wonderful. Indeed, my dear fellows, the inspector here is a shining diamond in its crown. A shining diamond in the rough, maybe. Look, I just don't want to be beholden to a lawyer, that's all. Counsel for the defense of the defendant. Court proceedings are about to resume. Make your way to the courtroom at once. Well, I shall leave you then. I'll be listening with interest for the public gallery. Not nodding off at all, certainly not. Thank you, Mr. Sholmes. I'm rather tired of seeing Mr. Mustache in floods of tears personally, so the best of luck to you. Locos to Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Yes, Mr. Natsume. It's time, isn't it? Yes, this is it. Miss Olive Green and Mr. William Shamspeare. This is going to be the final battle between those two people. I won't really have saved Saseki-san until I've exposed the whole truth to everything that's been going on. But it's all coming to a head now. You can do it, Raidasuke. You have to. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again now. Before the recess, we heard a most startling accusation from the defense. Namely that the victim of the case we heard here only a few days ago is the true perpetrator of this incident. A reckless, rash, and prejudiced charge of wrongdoing in my opinion, my lord, however. The prosecution has tried to extend every courtesy to this amateur newcomer from devious eastern shores. Thank you for that backhanded consideration. A rather cold assessment from the honorable British prosecutor, I must say. So, Lord Van Zykes, is the new witness present and ready to take the stand? Ready and waiting in the witness's antechamber, my lord. Very well, bailiff, bring the witness in. Bring the witnesses in. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court, please. William Shamspeare, my liege. For my occupation, I can say only that I bet it be a tragic victim to be pitied. Currently unemployed, in other words. I'm Olive Green. I'm a fledgling artist. Well, no, not a fledgling, really. A hopeless failure who's too weak-spirited to admit she has no talent, I suppose. Also currently unemployed, in other words. What a coterie. Mr. Shamspeare. My lord, I am thy humble servant. I'm afraid that you are no longer merely the victim in this affair. The possibility has been raised that you are in fact the assailant intent on taking the life of your fellow lodger. The part you have played in this whole business will be thoroughly scrutinized, I assure you. I would for naught else, my lord. And Miss Green. Yes? You are aware of the reason you have been summoned to this courtroom today, I presume? Yes, the officer did explain. He said I poisoned this ridiculous buffoon. And do you accept the charge, Miss Green? I don't know anything about any poisoning. And I don't know anything about this man. Lady, die, to live. Verily I know not thy prickly pea-pigmented personage. Very well, let us proceed with the matter at hand. That being to ascertain whether or not Miss Green has any involvement in this affair. It's all very strange indeed. Why would you suspect me? I barely ever go to the East End anyway. It so happened that I passed by that neighborhood 6 days ago, that's all. And on the night that this man was poisoned, I was still in hospital, fighting for my life. Yes, having been unfortunately caught up in the incident on the street outside the Garanep household. An incident that rendered you unconscious for some 3 days. I was struck in the middle of my back by a knife through no fault of my own, and now I'm under suspicion. What other irrelevant things I be suspected of? It's all very disturbing. Your energies may be better spent worrying about random knife attacks, I feel, Miss Green. At this point in time, all that appears to connect you with Mr. Shakespeare's lodgings to the Briar Road incident of 6 days ago. That's why we would like you to testify formally now about exactly what happened. Oh no. The incident 6 days ago? You mean you want me to relive that awful accident? Unfortunately, yes. I would have not used the unfortunately, I just would have just said, yes indeed. Please tell the court what happened that day. Make a scary face. And of course, we will be interested to hear from you about your movements that day too, Mr. Shakespeare. But what happened 6 days ago has nothing to do with me being poisoned. Let us proceed then. The witnesses will present their formal testimony to the court on the subject of the incident that took place on Briar Road the evening of the 17th of February. "6 days ago, at about 5 p.m., I was walking along in the snow when I was suddenly stabbed in the back. Coincidentally, I happened to be just outside the house where the men in this case have their lodgings. I was at the tavern in the eve of which thou speakest, for I had bespoke my supper. It was the first time I'd been in the area. I had a little matter to attend to, that's all. Anyway, I was admitted straight to the hospital, so I knew nothing about all of this business. Yes, the second incident inside a week at what I believe to be aptly described as the haunted lodgings. One can only presume this is the most unfortunate coincidence. Meanwhile, you say you were not in your room, Mr. Shakespeare. 'Twas the following morn when I did awaken that I learned of the dire events. Marry, what a commotion did the officers of the law make on the floor above mine, when Soseki-san was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. As suspected, there is nothing connecting these two witnesses but happenstance. It's true, it does seem as though they're unrelated at first glance, but I'm not so sure. There's something lurking in the shadows here, I'm certain of it. And this is my one and only chance to expose it. Counsel, you may now cross-examine these two witnesses if you wish. Yes, my lord.
Hold it!
It's like, man, I hate it when that happens. I'm well acquainted with the case. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Yeah, it was awful. I still can't believe I was unconscious for so long. And I woke up to find that the case had been solved and the culprit arrested. Yes, the incident has been resolved already. Perhaps it would help you to consider it a bad dream that ended with you awakening and should now be forgotten. Yes, I suppose so. Thank you. Before you put it in completely behind you, Miss Green, I need you to remember the details one last time. You must tell the court exactly what happened that day, for us to arrive at the truth about this new case. Trouble is, there's nothing to tell, really. I was just walking along the pavement.
Hold it!
What were you doing there that day, though? What do you mean? The art school you attend. What's it called? Yes, it's the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. According to Mr. Sholmes, that's just to the vicinity of Brixton Road, which is some 10 steps away from the scene of the on the underground. I believe you mentioned before that you also live on Brixton Road, isn't that right? So why, then, would you have been walking along by a road in the middle of the East End? Well, it's because, I guess, of course, I thought it might take a nice picture. Make. The witness is a student of art. City-dwelling artists can't all paint grand urban vistas. That's right, I happen to like the crumbling look of that part of town. Perhaps quaint would have been a less grating term. The point is, she's definitely hiding something. Yes, it seems she's not going to be forthcoming with the truth. She's trying to hide why she was there that evening. It must mean that there's a reason for her not wanting us to know. That's the key to this. And you, Mr. Shakespeare, on the evening of the incident 6 days ago, would you tell the court what exactly you were doing? To be my pleasure, sire. Was at the tavern, okay.
Hold it!
A tavern, you say? Which one? It was the Slug and Salad where I did tarry. 'Twas a jewel in the East End. And a little unexpected, I feel. What do you mean, Lord Van Zykes? Slug and Salad offers unusually fine dining, for the locality at least. Not an establishment you expect to be patronized by a man with not even a crumb of bread in his room. It's true, the menu lists premium crusts of bread and glasses of water, in different levels of cloudiness. I would have expected Rose Gubbery in the local vicinity to be more appropriate for your means. Watery soup and mushy peas, or rather, soupy water and pea like mush. All equally appetizing. I just want to try some water at a different pub for once, so what's wrong with that? How different can water really be? Or perhaps there's a more plausible explanation. A specific reason why I had to go to that particular establishment. Agreed. The fact that on that day of all days he dined at a place he wouldn't normally, it does stand out. So Mr. Shakespeare's own actions on the day of the incident 6 days ago were slightly suspicious. I wonder if we have some evidence that can explain these actions. Yes, sire. On the day in question, is it not the case that you visited the Slug and Salad, a place you don't normally patronize? For a very particular reason. I don't know what you're talking about. Pray, if thou hast some purpose, speakest. Very well, I will present the court with evidence. Evidence explains why you had to be at the Slug and Salad that day, namely... Okay. Yeah, I don't have it yet. Oh well.
Take that!
I'm gonna eat some health. Okay, we gotta press that for evidence on this. Yeah, so I'll just do that. That was just really silly mistake.
Hold it!
What about that little matter, Miss Green? Please elaborate. It was nothing really. It's not worth mentioning. Oh, I gotta, like, check the new stuff, too. "18 counts of burglary, 6 counts of suspected murder, died of natural causes, was imprisoned, his final moments witnessed only by his cellmate. The estimated 1,000 pounds worth of loot he stole remains undiscovered." Manchester's Strange Away Prison announced the death of the convicted murderer and burglar Sheldon by natural causes in the early hours this morning. He had been suffering with fever since the end of October. Alerted by the shouts of his fellow cellmate, medical staff arrived to find him already dead, before his capital punishment could be carried out. If you remember, you mentioned it to us yesterday at the hospital. It was related to the card you were holding. Miss Green. From memory, I believe the card contained a note that read, "I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross." What does that matter? This has nothing to do with Duncan.
Excuse me.
Mr. Shamspear, do you have something to share with the court? To be or not to be? That is the question. Ah, pray forgive me. The great bard's word springeth from within me with ne'er a thought. Don't tell me it's because you're possessed by Shakespeare's spirit, right? Hearing Miss Gray's words a moment ago seemed to make you think of something. Something of relevance, perhaps? Nay, sire, it was nothing at all. Presumably you know the name, though. Mr. Duncan Ross, I mean. After all, you were both lodgers in the same house. I would it were so, but sadly nay. Lodging be a lonely occupation, sire. My lodging fellows be rarely known to me. So you haven't heard of him, even though he passed away in the room just one floor above yours. Miss Green. Me, my lord? Have I done something wrong? The card that was mentioned before containing the note. Do you have it upon your person? I do, yes, but I don't need it anymore. In fact, I should throw it away, really. Before you dispose of it, the court will take it as evidence, please. Of course, that's what links Mr. Shamspear and Miss Green is Duncan Ross. Now, continue with your testimony, please, Miss Green. I'm going to, examine that, just in case I need to. The envelope has been ripped open rather carelessly, hasn't it? Miss Green strikes me as the type to open correspondence more neatly than that. Ah, what is it? The way the envelope is torn, I'm almost sure I've seen that exact same shape somewhere else. Oh, you don't mean... Were you thinking this piece of evidence, Mr. Naruhodo? Exactly, that's it. Try to match them up. They go together perfectly. This torn off end of the envelope clearly belongs with this card.
Hold it!
Yes, you didn't regain consciousness until the day after the trial, did you? In the early hours. Exactly, so how could I have had anything to do with it? And yet you still haul me in here to court like this, honestly. So at the time of the poisoning, the witness was unconscious in her hospital bed. Could there be a more airtight alibi, I ask you? Yes, there can be. You could be dead. And yet, in spite of that, you claim that I was the culprit. Well, you have to be like, or like literally hanging on a cross. In public. But you certainly haven't produced any evidence to support your wild claims, have you? None at all. There you have it. The good lady has yet to see evidence, my learned Nipponese friend. I'm working on it. Counsel, I will point out here that the jury's next decision will be final. We're really up against the wall here. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, you preserved Mr. Shamspear wonderfully here. It worked out well, hasn't it? We have a new clue at last. Alright, now I need to pull off a really insightful objection somewhere. Well, as you managed to expose this promising new angle, I wonder if you should perhaps try to develop that? Ah, yes, of course. And yelling out objections isn't necessarily the best way to do that, I suppose. Correct, you yell, "Take that!"
Hold it!
No. I pressed on like one too many. Or one too far to the right. Philly. Wade through all this text with these 3D sprite animations embedded in it, which makes it go slower than it should. It's actually new dialogue. I just don't feel like reading it.
Hold it!
Okay, now I present. As if I didn't do before or anything.
Take that!
I believe this card reveals the answer. Good lord, Miss Green's card, you mean? That's right, my lord. It reads, I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross. Come to the Slug and Salad on Briar Road at 5 p.m. on the 17th. Don't tell anyone else about this letter or the meeting. It is a matter of utmost importance. Mr. Shamspear, your actions on the afternoon of Miss Green's stabbing are exactly as described in this note. Personally, I find it hard to believe that's a coincidence. Don't you, Mr. Shamspear? Well... Excuse me. Can I say something? Yes, Miss Green? That card was delivered to me... Doesn't have anything to do with this old man, does it? Well, you'd think so, yes, but it's hard to believe it's merely... My lord, may I... May you what, Miss Green? I'd like to make something very clear about that card. Very well, then, you may amend your testimony to include details about the peculiar note. This note was delivered to me at my address. It's nothing to do with the odd man next to me here.
Hold it!
I think you said that you received it the day before the incident, didn't you? Yes, that's right. There appears to be no indication of the sender's name or address on the envelope. It was in my letterbox, and that's all I know, I'm afraid. I have no idea who sent it. I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross. Who is this Duncan Ross, please? A friend of mine. He attended the same art school as I do. He passed away in a tragic accident a month ago now, though. I wasn't sure what to make of that note, to be honest, but in the end I decided to go. So you found out what the information was. Of course I didn't. You're not thinking straight. Whilst on her way there, she was stabbed in the back. As my learned friend hopefully remembers. Yes, of course. She never made it to the meeting. So we do the other part, the other piece here.
Objection!
Oh, that was an objection. Okay. The day before the incident, exactly 1 week ago now, this note was delivered to your address. And upon carrying out the instructions in the note, you found yourself in the hospital. Yes, I did. It's terrible, everything that happened to me. Yes, it is terrible. If it's all true, that is. What do you mean? Miss Green, have a look at this, please. It's a torn off end of an envelope. Oh, is it? And it so happens that it fits together perfectly with the envelope of the note you received. Where did you find that? In Mr. Shamspeare's room. In my room? Mr. Shamspeare, do you perhaps remember this note from somewhere? Well, your actions that afternoon follow the instructions of the note to the letter. Come to the Slug and Salad on Briar Road at 5 p.m. on the 7th. And so that's exactly where you went. Let me ask you again, Mr. Shamspeare. You already knew about this note, didn't you? And you, Miss Green? What did I do? And this torn off into the envelope proves. The note was originally in Mr. Shamspeare's room. So how is it that it came to be in your possession? I don't have the first idea. I'm just a fledgling artist after all. That's irrelevant! There is only one explanation. You broke into Mr. Shamspeare's room and stole it. You did what? Sorry, thou hast what? You broke, I mean, thou werst in my room? What on earth do you want with me? Shamspeare believes it. It would seem that both witnesses need to testify again. Miss Green. Yes? Whilst you have the court's sympathy, I'm sure, for the suffering you have endured in recent events. Anyone found to be giving false testimony in a court of law will be duly punished. Please bear that in mind. Yes, I know. Very well then, witnesses. You will give formal testimony again now. On subject to that curious anomaly regarding the note Miss Green claims to have received. I do remember now, 'twas a week ago, pre-adventure, that note was delivered unto me. On the day with therein, I did tarry a long hour at the slogan salad, yet nobody came. Thereafter, on the evening I shared the company of the Japanese fellow, I did see the note had vanished. I don't know what you mean. I think I snuck into his... You think I snuck into this man's room, do you? Why would I? I can point out the villain here, and as far as that torn off piece of envelope, I don't know anything about it. You claim to have received this letter, do you, Mr. Shamspeare? Faith, 'twas so, my lord, and I would swear to have set it upon the table in my humble lodgings. Yet 'twas clear to me now that since I returned from the tavern that night, I have not laid eyes upon it. Well, that being the case, young lady, it would appear that your testimony was a lie. Is that what you think? How unfair of you to think I'm the one lying. I beg your pardon. I'm just a fledgling artist, as I said, and fledgling artists don't lie. You made up a stereotype for yourself. That note was delivered to me at my address, besides. We all know who the liar around here is. If that's true, Miss Green, how do you explain the facts? This part of the envelope was, without question, found in Mr. Shamspeare's room. I don't see why I should explain. Sorry? I'm a fledgling artist. My job here is just to say what happened, that's all. It's your job to give the explanations and the proofs. You, the fledgling lawyer. The fledgling will do his best. Evidently, my learned friend's cross-examination is our only hope of learning the truth. Well, counsel, I am ready, my lord. Very well, then. The defense will now proceed with the cross-examination of the witnesses. Miss Green clearly did break into Mr. Shamspeare's room. There can be no question of that. And that's how she acquired the note. Yes, two facts that are starting to lead me to a possible explanation for all this. And it's not a pretty one.
Hold it!
And can you shed any light on the contents of the note at all? Nah, sire, 'tis as strange to me as a foreign tongue. Even with knowledge of literature as great as mine, oh, and verily, 'tis impenetrable. But Mr. Duncan Ross had lodgings in the same household as you. In effect, he was your neighbor, so surely you knew him, didn't you? Alack! If the choice is betwixt I knew him and I knew him not, then 'tis with foreboding that I be forced to declare we were by some small measure acquainted. Despite your claims, though, you followed the note's instructions and went to the slug and salad. Presumably that was nothing to do with your knowledge of literature? Marry, not will have the better of me, sire, save for the lure of curiosity. So 'tis true, I was compelled by mine own eager heart to betake myself to the tavern. Yet in the end, my curiosity was not satiated.
Hold it!
So even after waiting for an hour, nobody appeared. Well, yes, sire. 'Tis as thou sayest. Really? You paused for a moment before you answered. In truth, when thou asked whether nobody appeared, I did suddenly recall. Really? Do you mean to tell the court that somebody did appear after all? I was not alone that night at the slug and salad, my lord. No, 'tis returning to me now. I did treat my lips to almost clear water, and mine innards to a premium crust of bread. And all around me danced a great many companions. What do you mean? Flies, sire, flies. Good lord. In the name of Beelzebub. What were they? Fairies, perchance, from a midsummer night's dream, come to taunt me? I think they were just flies. I can't help but thinking that the flies ought to choose something more wholesome to buzz around. Is that wrong of me?
Hold it!
When exactly did you notice it had gone missing? Such idle thoughts ne'er occupy my mind. I am busied with greater ideas. In other words, you didn't notice. Several days passed between your outing to the tavern and Mr. Natsume's visit to your room. Yes, it would appear that the note disappeared sometime in that interval. Such idle thoughts ne'er occupy my mind. I am busied with greater ideas. And yet during that time, Miss Green was comatose in the hospital, was she not? Certainly then she could not have been stealing things from Mr. Shamspeare's room. Ah, yes. Yes, of course. It's all some sort of misunderstanding. Isn't it, Mr. Prosecutor, sir? You have so far failed to give a satisfactory explanation as how you came by the note. Ah. I am not here to advocate for your defense, madame. I won't tolerate inconsistencies in your story. You would do well to remember that. Oh, dearie me. It's Lord Van Zyke's getting at.
Hold it!
It seems that this note was actually delivered to Mr. Shakespeare about 1 week ago. Oh, does it? But for some reason, it ended up in your possession. I can't think of any way that could have happened except for you breaking into Mr. Shamspeare's lodgings. But for what reason would the witness have done that? I won't deny that Miss Green's possession of the note would appear to defy logic. However, until and unless her involvement in this case can be proven in some other way, any further pursuit of this note is meaningless. Miss Green could only have come to be in possession of the note by stealing it from Mr. Shamspeare's room. And yet, there's no obvious reason why she would have done such a thing. What if there was some other reason she broke into his lodgings, though? Yes, we should pursue that idea, Mr. Naruhodo. We're close now, I can feel it. We're so close to a breakthrough.
Hold it!
So you don't want to tell the court the truth about the letter, is that it? Fledgling artist, remember? Artists are nearly always introverted characters. Introverted? Fie! This fledgling doth readily cast aspersions about my nature. Yet I am an angel, a seraph. Birds do harmonize with my song. The wind doth frolic on my wing. O pity, therefore, dost thou accuse me so pure of heart? Ample woman? Pure of heart? I don't think so. Even a fledgling like me can see you're just a failure. Tragedy, thou shalt not know the true heart of an artist, until thine instruction hereafter by death. Oh, the days, oh, the years, alas, to enlighten thee, thou must wait so long and in vain. Mr. Naruhodo, interject with some clever remark. This is your chance to shine. I'm no Shakespearean actor, Mr. Sato. Now, as far as I can tell, the only thing that's going on to resolve this argument is evidence. Yes. Clear that Miss Green did in fact break into Mr. Shamspeare's room, isn't it? And that's where she found this letter. Yes, two more or less foregone conclusions that lead me to one terrifying conclusion. Terrifying? Yes, I'm afraid to say that the outcome of this cross-examination may well change how I look at this case completely. We already know what it's going to be, though, so... Okay, so this is the one where they claimed they were close, was on this one. I don't know what you mean. You think I snuck into this man's room, do you? Why would I? And we present this.
Objection!
And we lose health. Okay, great. It was a week ago. Okay, so our band, secondhand books. Map. This is Shakespeare's room. The soap. The teacups. This picture. Okay, just this smoke quantity strike 9, toxic effects present 30 minutes after ingestion. High likelihood of a substance sample being mixed with the tea. The victim was drinking, but no sample could be found. Poisoning incident occurred around 1:30 a.m. on the 21st of February. No container for the poison was found at the scene. Gas meter, handprints, this, strike 9. So the slug and salad. Yeah, we believe him. He really was there. Okay, notice an advantage. Cool. It's the poison we've been hearing so much about. Strike 9. There are a few remnants on the bottom of the bottle here, look. You mustn't be tempted to try it. Of course not, as long as we don't lose this trial. No, and even if we lose the trial... No, we mustn't lose the trial in the first place, Mr. Naruhodo. Make your mind up, Susato-san. This is something that could be used, I guess. Press this again.
Hold it!
Objection!
Who says you have to connect her some other way? Okay. Another reason she broke into his lodgings. Yes, we should pursue that idea. So we already tried presenting this And it didn't work. So let's present this then.
Objection!
The music stopped, I got it. Yesterday at the hospital, we saw you with this bottle. And though the contents spilt during the course of our meeting, a small quantity remained. According to the defense's independent analysis, Mr. Sholmes' chemistry set, the liquid that was still in the bottle was identified as Strike 9. What, Strike 9? The very same poison that afflicted Mr. Shamspear. Miss Green, you broke into this man's lodgings. For one reason and one reason alone. To cover the end of that of the pipe that feeds the gas lamp of Mr. Shamspear's room with poison. Can this be? You broke into my room? It may seem incredible to the court. And from the remaining clues, there is only one logical conclusion that we can reach. The person who attempted to take Mr. Shamspear's life with poison was you, Miss Olive Green. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Me. What, Counsel, are you seriously suggesting this woman put poison on the end of the gas pipe with intent to kill? Yes, my lord. There's no other way to explain the facts. But if Miss Green did indeed set this odious trap 6 days ago, and the victim had put his mouth on the pipe that very evening as expected, the attempted murder would have happened 6 days ago, surely. Well, it's a very good point. Perhaps not, my lord. I beg your pardon. There was a significant police presence in the area that evening on account of the incident up Briar Road. Local residents were being interviewed throughout the night as part of the ongoing inquiry. A circumspect criminal would likely have chosen not to carry out any wrongdoing at that time. Lord Van Zykes? And of course, the following morning, there was more activity at Mr. Shamspear's address. More activity? Ah, yes. You mean his fellow lodger, Mr. Natsume, being arrested on suspicion of murder. That's right. And as the defense has already proposed, Mr. Shamspear was meddling with the gas in the pipe for a very sinister reason himself, to cause the gas stove in Mr. Natsume's room to go out, thereby asphyxiating the occupant. And once Mr. Natsume had been arrested, his room was under constant surveillance by the police. In the circumstances, Mr. Shamspear had no reason to blow air into the gas pipe. His intended victim being in a prison cell. With the need to tamper with the gas removed, the poison on the pipe lay dormant. And then 3 days ago now, the situation changed again. Right, Mr. Natsume's trial, which took place here at the Old Bailey, came to an end. The trial in which the man stood accused of stabbing Miss Green in the back, but was duly acquitted. That resulted in Mr. Natsume returning to his lodgings for the first time in 2 days. And that very night, his gas stove mysteriously went out, and Mr. Shamspear was mysteriously poisoned. In conclusion, the poison that was present in the mouth of the gas pipe had been put there in the victim's room 4 days earlier. Mary! With that new understanding, it becomes clear that this letter was all part of the plan. What plan? The court will recall that the note gave instructions to visit the slug and sell it at 5 o'clock, and that the recipient should tell nobody else. The reason for those instructions are now clear. To ensure that the lodger would not be at home at the stated time. To make sure I wasn't home? Exactly. While you were out, Miss Green could safely slip into your room, knowing that she wouldn't be disturbed. You mean to say, that letter was written by Miss Green, yes. And in order to cover her tracks, she took it away with her when she left. just after she smeared poison over the mouth of the gas pipe in your room. What did you have to say for yourself, witness? Just who are you? Why did you try to kill me? Miss Gray's motive should be obvious. It's like, why is Mr. Shakespeare just accepting that his gas blowing just got like unveiled? Like he would want to deny all of this because, like, by trying to joining up pinning on this on Miss Green, he would end up agreeing with the mechanism by which Miss Green would try to kill him, which would agree that that's a viable mechanism, which would agree that he was indeed blowing on that pipe. It's all tied up with someone whose name we've heard several times already during the course of this trial. So that's what's behind all this. You will share your apparent understanding with the court, please, counsel. Which person is behind this woman's motive for the attack on the victim's life?
Take that!
Duncan Ross. That's right. Before the defendant, Mr. Natsume, took up residence in the lodgings at Mr. Garadeb's, somebody else was renting the room. Mr. Duncan Ross. I knew I'd heard the name before, named somewhere else. It was all over the papers a month ago. The man died in strange circumstances at the haunted lodgings. That does ring a vague, of course, yes, I remember now. The young man, they claimed, was strangled by the convict's curse or some such. Sadly, my lord, it wasn't a curse of any kind. Nor was it an accident. The man died as a result of Mr. Shakespeare blowing into the gas pipe and causing gas to leak into the room. It was murder, plain and simple. Well, what do you know? The world is so unfair. Curses, curious deaths. That's all people care about. It's an interesting story they want to know. It doesn't cross their minds that real people are involved. And once they're bored, just 1 month later, once the story's lost its appeal, everyone's forgotten him. You mean Duncan was... Mr. Ross was Miss Green's fiancé. Fiancé? You may not have known until now who Miss Green really is, Mr. Shakespeare. But she's known exactly who you are all along. Because you're her sworn enemy. The murderer who took the life of the man she was to marry. Marry? Nice. Miss Green, is it not the case that in order to exact revenge on Mr. Shakespeare, you smeared poison over the end of the gas pipe? How did you know he would do it again? This is all quite extraordinary. Am I correct in my understanding that you now accuse both parties, counsel? Each on different accounts of murder. Yes, my lord. That's correct.
Objection!
Inhaling so deeply, it appears, that my fledgling my friend has taken in a lungful of dubious gas that caused the judgments to be clouded. What? Why would Mr. Shakespeare have wanted to kill these lodgers, as you say? You have completely failed to provide a motive to substantiate your accusation against the man. Yes. That's right, Mr. Reaper, my liege. I have been slighted. 'Tis lies, all lies, they deny every utterance. And you'll have to forgive me, Mr. Naruhodo, sir. But I don't intend to admit to anything either. Miss Green, I'm sure you'll think I'm being very rude. I'm not going to be sent to the gallows for the likes of this scoundrel.
Objection!
But you broke into the man's room. You didn't do it to smear poison on the pipe. What was your reason? I thought I'd have to look around, that's all. Thought I'd have a look around. Sorry. You're right, I suspected him. So I thought perhaps I might find some evidence or something in his room. Evidence that it was him who took Duncan's life. Oh villainy, oh villainy, oh tyranny, oh rotundity of woman. But in any case, whene'er I leave my room, I do turn the key in the lock. That whole place is falling apart. The locks on the doors are no different. Duncan showed me once how to unlock the door, with some chirps and a piece of wire. Oh awfulness, oh artfulness, oh tyranny, oh profanity of woman. We will consider your trespassing on some future occasion. But for now, tell the court what you found, what evidence your search revealed. Well, I spotted the note that I'd sent him lying on the floor. When I went to pick it up, I noticed something. One of the floorboards was loose, and underneath it I discovered a secret hiding place. Yes, we also discovered that hiding place. Inside we found a newspaper cutting, a photograph, and an empty tin box. Ah yes, well the thing is, when I found it, the box wasn't empty. What? There was something in it? Yes. This rather nice key. Big ah. Someone sniffed some ah. What are you doing with that? What the? That's a good facial expression she had too. Every ounce of color has drained from his face. Give it here. Give it to me now. It's mine. I inherited it. What was that, witness? What did you say? You inherited it? No, what's all this about? He inherited that key? He is the son of the convict. Oh. And that is the key to his stash of treasure. It was obviously important to you since you've gone to such lengths to hide it, so I took it. It's a good reason to take things, because they're important to people. Great. Anti-empathy. I don't know what it's for, but you took something precious from me. So I took something precious from you. That's like metal lyrics. So what if it means you can't open something now? I don't care. Give it back to this minute. Give it to me. Plumb yourself, witness. So Mr. Shamspeare has tried, and in one case succeeded, to take the life of 2 lodgers now. Yes, his motive for doing so is the key to everything that's happened. It's true, there appears to be no motive to support the accusations against Mr. Shamspeare at first. Considering everything we know now, I think there is actually something that could explain it. What? I need to recall every piece of evidence at our disposal. Everything we've seen and heard. Because I'm sure that I just caught a glimpse of the link that runs through all these events. In that case, counsel, I must demand that you present evidence to the court in support of your claim. What is it that you say you can explain the motivation for Mr. Shamspeare's alleged crimes?
Take that!
That's an official police report, is it not? I meant to examine it and accidentally presented it. I got lucky, it was not wrong. The Selden file, how did you get a hold of that? Selden? The now sadly deceased Mr. Ross and the defendant Mr. Natsume have only one thing linking them. The fact that they had lodgings in the same room. Well, yes. We know this certainly. A room that was formerly occupied by Selden. Until, that is, he was arrested by Scotland Yard for his involvement in multiple burglaries. I see. And it so happened that the convict Selden left behind one very substantial mystery when he died. The some 1,000 pounds worth of loot that he stole, which as yet remains to be found. Ah, yes, of course. It's coming back to me now. It's written in his file here. 1,000 pounds of lost en route to hell. That was how the papers summed it up. and it seems that one particular fellow inmate was with the convict in his final moments. It's not hard to imagine Selden entrusted that inmate with his most closely guarded secret, the location of the stolen loot, and perhaps a key, to unlock whatever container that valuables were in. All you mean this key is... Mr. Shakespeare, was you, wasn't it? You were at the capital offender's side when he died, were you not? What are you talking about? 'Tis a false charge, I tell you, a false charge. Man, the name of the inmate who was with Selden at his death isn't noted in this file, but a simple telegram to the prison where he died would quickly tell us how false the charge really is. But even if it's true, why would the man be so intent on killing every subsequent occupant of the convict's lodgings? There's only one explanation for that, my lord. It was in that very room that Selden hid his loot. So, it all comes out. Yes, and having established that, all of Mr. Shakespeare's subsequent actions start to make perfect sense. He was let out of prison following Selden's death. He made immediate leave for the Garadeb's lodgings in the hope of renting Selden's old room. However, the retired army man was unable to offer him the accommodation of his choice, because Selden's old room had already been lent to somebody else, Mr. Duncan Ross. Which is why Mr. Shakespeare subsequently devised his gas-based plot to kill the occupant of the room. And when he was successful, he presumably intended to inquire about switching into the newly vacant room. However, a certain jittery someone had beaten him to it. Mr. Soseki Natsume, the defendant in this case, no less. So you decided to use the ploy with the gas again, didn't you, Mr. Shakespeare? This time to oust Mr. Natsume. All for one simple and avaricious reason. To get your hands on the 1,000 pounds of loot left behind by the dead convict. Yarg. Looks like I get going to stuff it before I let them stretch me neck. Listen, I want you to have me loot, and if fin to stop the coppers getting their mitts on it. It's hidden in the room where I was lodging when they got me, and this is the key to it. Take it. Always stay one step ahead, mate. See you in hell, I guess. Shakespeare. It's mine. You just say, it's mine. That loot is mine. Mr. Shakespeare? It's all lies. I don't accept any of it. Why should I? After all, you don't have a shred of evidence. You can't prove I killed that fellow. Forsooth, I'm the victim here, remember. Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? If I don't admit to it, there's nothing you can do. You can't arrest me, for the time being anyway. Verily, you can't arrest the victim, can you? Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? I'm so close, I just need a few more hours. I swore to myself that I'd get my hands on it, and I can almost taste it now. You really think I'd just give up? There's no question in my mind now. This man's guilty through and through. But she seems so utterly intoxicated by the idea of that loot. I'm afraid that however hard you press him, he'll never admit what he's done, Mr. Naruhodo. There is a way. Pardon? There's one way I can finish him. No. He's already committed the most heinous crimes to get his hands on that loot. Which means all we need to do is find it first. fine plan. Were it not for the fact that the police thoroughly searched the room following the death of Mr. Ross. If it's there at all, it must be very well hidden indeed. Without conclusive evidence, I certainly cannot rule. If only there was some way we could find the convict's loot quickly. This is the final piece in this complex puzzle, but I think we might have it in our possession already. Or rather, I think we may well have something that can help us find where the loot is hidden. My lord. Yes, counsel? The defense would like to make a proposal about how to find the late convict's hidden loot. I believe we're already in possession of something that could give us a clue as to its whereabouts. It's our last chance, so it has to be worth a gamble. Besides, we've used that same technique once already, and it definitely paid off then. Very well then, counsels, let the court hear your idea. What do you propose we can use in order to locate the hiding place of the deceased convict's haul? The armband. No. We have 3 tries at this. Book receipt, no. Map, no. This, no. Soap, no. This, no. This, no. Wrong. This is interesting, but it's the wrong room. No. Goodness. How's the soap? Skin prints?
Take that!
If I'm not mistaken, those are Mr. Shakespeare's handprints on the wall of his lodgings. Okay, we're actually going here. That's right, my lord, exposed as a result of the defense's independent investigation of the scene. Based on a wonderful new discovery in the field of forensic science by the great detective, Mr. Sholmes. A great detective? Is that some kind of joke? Do you really think I'm going to be daunted by a man with such a ridiculous title? I thought I should think the great bard ought to recognize such a title when he hears one, Mr. Shakespeare. Oh, that's Sholmes. Perhaps we should compete for the honor of most ridiculous title. 'Tis Sherlock Sholmes himself. What are you doing here, great detective? Your usual haunts are the filthy back streets of the capital, are they not? Ah, Mr. Reaper. Been too long. I see your complexion has worsened since we last met. Mr. Sholmes? He does know Lord Van Slyke's then? Well enough to say something like that in any case. Mr. Sholmes, though you may have maybe heralded as a great detective by the population at large, that does not give you the right to come in and go in my courtroom as you see fit. Isn't that a public gallery? It may, my lord. Mr. Sholmes' newly developed scientific method has helped us to uncover vital clues in this case already. Clues, you say? I call them skin prints, my lord. A method identifies every location touched by an individual under scrutiny. It's the method by which we are able to ascertain this gentleman's gas pipe activities. Ah. You need only a small sample of something the individual had previously touched to make an indicator solution. In your case, sir, I used the teacup you have been holding. Elementary. So now, Mr. Naruhodo. Ah, yes? What am I to use as a sample to make an indicator solution this time? Thank you for offering to help, Mr. Sholmes. The convict was arrested. He was living in what is now Saseki-san's room. We need a sample to help locate Selden's loot that's hidden in his old room. What form will the sample take? He's dead. We don't really have anything that Selden touched, right? We don't have this. He didn't touch this, nor that. Didn't touch that, didn't touch that, didn't touch that. Didn't touch this. Didn't touch that. Definitely didn't touch that. Didn't touch the soap. Didn't touch this. Yeah, so I have to present a person. Yeah, okay, Shamspear. We'll need something of Sheldon's in order to create an indicator solution to find his loot. Something the convict don't happen to be in the possession of somebody listed in the court record. Upon my word, Mr. Naruhodo, your powers of reasoning appear to be on the up. So, which particular person do you have in mind? From whom can we obtain a possession of the late convict Sheldon? Her.
Take that!
Miss Green. It's like I chose Shamspear. It's like, okay, then he's someone who, what's his face? Selden touched. And then I was like, nope, it's Miss Green because she has the key. Ah, me? What do you want with me? The key around your neck. If you please. Sorry? That key belonged to Selden. There will be remnants of secretions from the man's skin on its surface that we can use. Very true. That is the sample we need. Using it, we can create the indicator solution required for Mr. Sholmes' skin print seeker. And find out exactly what Selden touched in the room that he used to rent. Mr. Shamspear, as one great to another, I assure you. The late convict's hall is hidden somewhere in his former lodgings. I shall uncover it in no more than 30 minutes. So, Mr. Shamspear, the truth is well within our grasp now, and as such, you will never get your hands on Selden's stolen wealth. In that case, I'll gladly let Mr. Sholmes have this key. No, give me the key to me. Detective shan't have it. It's over, Mr. Shamspear. No. You're out of options now. There's only one thing left for you to do. Admit your guilt. Whoa. I never intended to kill the man. I just wanted to drive him out of the room. That's all. So you'd have time to find the convict's haul of stolen goods? Yet after you killed the young man, you still didn't move into the room. I asked the landlord, of course. I pleaded with him, but he refused. Why? It was 3 months behind with the rent, for one thing. Mr. Garrett really has had a lot to put up with. And he had the gas repair work done immediately afterwards, putting the room out of action for a while. And then, this Japanese man swooped in just the right moment to sign the new lease. Poor Mr. Natsume, what unfortunate timing. Then, 5 days ago, after the incident on Briar Road, when the Japanese fellow got himself arrested, I thought I'd finally have my chance, but it wasn't to be. The scene was sealed off and guarded by the police night and day. If I remember rightly, Mr. Shull spent the whole day in there reading books. I couldn't even enter the room, let alone search for the loot. Which is why on the day Mr. Natsume was acquitted and returned to his room, he once again tried your trick of blowing air into the gas pipe that feeds the stove in his room. Unbeknownst to you, however, that action would lead you into a deadly trap. William Shakespeare. How does it go, to be or not to be? That is the question. Shakespeare's Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1. Well, let me tell you, in your case, it's not to be. That is the answer. You deserve to die for what you've done. Work. At first I recall, I really did think it was just a terrible accident. I'll never forget our conversation the night before Duncan died. Gas supply at my new lodgings are a complete disaster, you know, Olive. The gas supply? Yes, the stove always seems to go out in the middle of the night for some reason. That's no joke. They say it's the convict's curse. Duncan, please, don't stay there. I don't care how cheap it is. Alright then, if it's that important to you, I'll start looking for a new place. There are spare rooms at my house. Why don't you leave that horrible room tonight? No, I better not. We said we'd wait until we graduated before we told our parents, remember? But that was the last time we ever spoke. That very night, he fell victim to the gas. If only I known it was going to happen, I'd have insisted he left that horrible room that instant. But instead, all I've been left with is bitter regret. I stopped going to school, and something kept me drawing back to the house on Briar Road. I saw a stooped Eastern-looking man with a mustache coming out of the house one day when I was there. He walked up the road to Grubb's Grubbery for some food, so I followed him, and sat myself down next to him. He had some watery-looking soup and started to pick a quarrel with the publican. That place is cursed, I tell you, cursed. The ghost of that convict who used to live there is trying to suffocate me. I wake up in the middle of the night, freezing to death because the stove has gone out. The room is full of gas, and I can't hardly breathe. But the pipes have been checked, no problem there. It's like, I'm the problem, that's what they're thinking. How could that be? Duncan was gone, and now this man had almost suffered the same fate. Could it really be a curse? Then I remembered. A rumor I'd heard about how the gas companies go around investigating the gas installations. A rumor? Oh, you mean... Yes, everybody heard the stories, it seems, about how they go around checking the pipes. How anything connected to the gas could be extinguished by blowing air into the pipework. That's when it started. A little flicker of doubt in my back of my mind that just wouldn't go away. Was it really an accident, though? Once I had the idea, it wouldn't leave me alone. It plagued me day and night. So I bought this at one of the black markets in the East End. A black market? I'd never been, I just heard people talk about them. And you really can't buy anything you can't think of there. Excuse me. That was a very minor sneeze. In some ways, being able to get my hands on this so easily made me even more determined. I had to find out, one way or another. Was Duncan's death an accident or was it a murder? And your method of establishing the truth was simple, but highly effective. Smear poison on the gas pipe you suspected the man of tampering with and wait. If Mr. Shamspear was innocent, nothing would come of what you'd done. But if he was guilty, he would pay for his crimes dearly. I found out the name of the man I suspected, William Shamspear, and then I wrote him this little note. 'If he'd done it, I knew that would worry him enough so he'd be sure to go. So I waited to see if it worked. And of course, Mr. Shamspear followed the instructions to the letter. Worked out where the gas pipe was straight away. So I smeared a good amount of poison I bought all around the mouth of the pipe. All the time praying that the devil's work would be done, and that it was all just some wild fantasy. Actually, no. All the time praying that the devil's work would be done, and that the culprit would get his just deserts. "3 days ago, when you first stood in the dock before me, this whole affair seemed relatively straightforward." "Yes, my lord. I certainly never imagined the depths of depravity that we should subsequently find lurking behind the scenes. It's been a long road, my Nipponese friend." "Oh yes. And I certainly didn't envision walking with you. Nevertheless, together we have reached the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. Miss Green." "Yes, my lord. You will henceforth be stripped of your freedom, as punishment for the attempted murder of Mr. William Shamspear." "Yes, I know. And you, Mr. Shamspear, you'll be tried for the murder of Duncan Ross in cold blood, and the subsequent attempted murder of Miss Oseki Natsume here present." "Mr. Naruhodo." "Ah, yes. Yesterday at the hospital, when you and your friend stopped me from ending your life by drinking what was left in the poison bottle, I wasn't myself. I can't even really remember what was going through my mind. To be or not to be, I suppose. That's a question that's so hard to answer, it seems. Well, personally, I'm glad of your being here, Miss Green. Oh, I'd like to believe that it's a blessing Mr. Shamspear did die when he ingested the poison. For your sake, at the very least. Because of you, I chose life, not death. And now you've made the truth come out at last. Really, I can't thank you enough. Oh, Miss Green. Mr. Soseki Natsume. Yes, my lord? The court declares that you are exonerated from all blame in this matter. Accordingly, I will call upon the ladies and gentlemen of the jury to present a verdict of not guilty. Some jury trial, the judge is like, I call upon the jury to present this. I, the judge, call upon the jury to present this conclusion. I guess technically the jury could just disagree if they wanted to. The jury wanted to be horrible trolls. We are in full agreement, my lord. In that case, I hereby declare the defendant court is adjourned. I still don't know if all that is anything to do with international diplomacy and state secrets. Unless it has something to do with Selden. But Selden? Selden a hitman for the government? Oh yes, yes, at last. Divine justice duly done. Divine justice? My dear fellow, is there were any divine justice in this world, you would shave that mustache. No. This has nothing to do with my mustache. Some say that a luxuriant mustache is a sign of physical prowess, Mr. Schultz. Welcome to Mr. Naruhodo Esquire once again. You've saved me from doom. I'm very happy to have been able to help, Mr. Natsume. Congratulations on your acquittal. Your second is almost in as many days. I was first acquainted with and gained affection for English literature, whilst in a great homeland empire. And then, by a twist of fate, I was brought to the land that bore the fruit of that literature. Only, the city of bricks and mortar became my prison. Try as I might, I never found my feet here. In the end, I confined myself to my room, and lived life through friendly old books. You've had such a difficult time, haven't you? But a week ago now, I dragged you out of that dark and dingy room of yours, did I not? You did, and I've seen more of life in this week than in all my years to date. And for the first time, I feel I've begun to see the true face of the English that's so far been hiding from behind the wall of fog. My dear fellow, there is nothing special about the true face of the English, as you put it. Wheresoever one goes in the world, humans are humans. There are few genuine differences. Yes, I think you're right. I've finally started to see that, and I've come to understand something. I've worked out why I was attracted to English literature in the first place. It made me see that whatever our nationality, we humans all have the same hopes and fears. We all are just doing our best to live. Well said, I've come to feel the same way. I've made a decision too. I'm going to cut short my study tour here and return to Japan. What? Just when we become friends here in England? What a terrible shame. Oh, I know, that does tug at my heartstrings, it really does. But I've decided I'd like to take everything I've learned here in Britain and write something of my own. A novel of sorts, I suppose. Oh my, but you'll be creating your own literature, Mr. Natsume, how wonderful. Oh, well, no, I mean, I wouldn't presume to call it literature. Why not? Then what is precisely the definition, Mr. Mustache? I suppose you're right, yes. It will in a way be literature. But as of now, all I know is that I'd like to try my hand at writing. I have no delusions of grandeur. I, for one, would love to read your book. Well, all things considered, it may be for the best. After all, you have once again emerged victorious. From a battle with the Reaper. Ah, that's very true. And there is no salvation for a person in the dock when the Reaper is the prosecutor. The desire to return post-haste to the perceived safety of your homeland is one I quite understand. My goodness, yes, faced with such a terrifying prospect. Nobody would consider that cowardly, I'm quite sure. But that's not why I'm leaving. I meant it. I mean it. That was the case that we found ourselves embroiled in 6 months ago now. Suzuki-san did indeed return from Japan, and submitted a report about how both cases to the government. It was on reading that report that Professor Mikotomo was prompted to visit the scholar. And barely any time later, Susato-san was given the news that she must return from Japan as well, on the back of a telegram stating falsely that her father had fallen gravely ill. The only possible explanation that comes to mind is what happened after the trial on the following day, the day that we uncovered the loot hidden by the now deceased convict in his former lodgings. Oh. So this is where we learn the state secrets. Well done, Mr. Sholmes. How simply marvelous of you to uncover the secret hiding place in just 1 day. Wasn't it supposed to take 30 minutes? Ah, I believe I told you, my dear fellow, skin prints are extremely useful in such situations. Wouldn't you agree, Gregson? Grixie's been happily marching in agreement this whole time, you know, Hurley. Happily, I think perhaps humorlessly might be closer to the truth. So, it transpires the man fashioned a hiding place in the ceiling. Now, what's in it? What exactly is the loot? Let us look then, if you're ready. Let's examine the late burglar's hall. What is that? A weightlifting belt? With blood on the inside? It looks to be some sort of neckband or collar. Oh. Collar, it's huge though. Looks like... And look at the gemstones set in it. I can see why it was claimed to be worth 1,000 pounds. Perhaps I could have it as a belt. Oh, have you noticed in the inside, there are some dark stains. You don't think they could be blood, do you? I mean, there's quite a lot of it. On second thought, perhaps I won't have it as a belt. Then, of course, there's this emblem here. A large letter B and a small crown. What does it signify, do you think? Oh, I hadn't noticed that. I feel as though I've seen that emblem somewhere before, you know? Where could it have been? The Baskervilles. That's enough of that, I think. Yep. What? What's the matter with Mr. Sholmes? All the color has drained from his face. Well, Inspector, I believe you ought to be taking this. Oughtn't you? It could be valuable evidence after all. Must be kept safely under lock and key. Ah, yes. Get your grubby hands off that, you lot, and hand it over now. I've never seen a collar that large before, and all those jewels certainly look to be extraordinarily valuable. But that's not what stood out the most to me, at least not once I noticed it. Those dark marks on the inside of the collar, those stains, could they really have been blood? Oh yes they were. Well, that was a funny case, wasn't it? But it's all bottomed up now. You look very pleased, Iris. I am, because I was starting to wonder what I could use as a basis for this month's story in the magazine. But this case will be perfect. It's been so fascinating. You're talking about the latest installment of the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, I presume. The mystery of the knife in the mist, and the mustached man and the convict's curse, perhaps. I could take it make it a two-part story. Oh, I can't wait. My word, please, Iris. Yes, what is it, Hurley? I'm sorry, but you can't write about this case. It's out of the question. Well, why not? It's a great case. Then I shall have to insist that you limit yourself to the first of the two titles. The second must never be written. Is that clear? Yes.
And so it was that the second of Souseki-san's cases became buried in obscurity. Now, looking back, I feel I understand. I can see why Mr. Sholmes forbade Iris from publishing the story. It would take a little longer before I saw the link between everything that had happened and would happen. For it wasn't until 2 months after the arrival of Susato-san's letter that events began to unfurl again, with an incident that took place at the very heart of the eagerly awaited Great Exhibition of London.
I survived. My dreams have not been crushed yet. That will be it for this one. Baskervilles. Oh, still really can't really do it. Okay. So the Great Exhibition. Twisted Karma in his last bow. Yeah. Barak van Zykes. Manfred von Karma. Are they related? I don't know. Three more cases.